Jenny Critchlow.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to what should be your Monday morning podcast. But there's been rather a lot of technical glitches this week, and so it's looking like a Tuesday morning podcast. Happy Tuesday! And because, as I say all the time, stress is resisting what is, I'm not resisting it, and we're just saying there's been glitches, an enormous amount of dialogue wiped from the planet of the Earth, I think. It'll probably turn up now once I post this. Anyway, how are you? How has your week been? And how are you doing in there? I'm wondering how it's going for you. We're learning about how in our minds we're really quite mad, and that if we can just stop and put into practice some of the things we're talking about on here, we can make our internal landscape, our internal life, a lot more peaceful, and in return, a lot more quiet. And in return, then our response to the world and from the world, our external landscape, becomes much more peaceful and much quieter. That's what I found in my perception and experience. So how's that been going? We've been looking a lot at how we are in relationship to ourselves, and therefore relationship to outside of ourselves. And hopefully what we're learning and what we're looking at is that we are actually in control of a lot more than we think we are. We're just not in control of what we think we want to be in control of. So what we want to be in control of normally is other people. We want them to respond to us in a certain way, to give us certain things, to behave in a certain way, to apologise for things, to see how much they hurt us, to understand what's going on in our internal landscape. And the interesting thing about that, if you can find that in yourself, and I've never yet met anyone that doesn't have that inside themselves, do let me know if you're the first. That'd be very interesting. And we'll have a go. I'm sure we can find it. What we find with that is that it is impossible. It's simply impossible to control other people. We might have varying degrees of success with certain people we've got something over. So remember, people only have control over you if you want something from them. If there's nothing they've got that you want, nothing at all, there's no control. And that's the same the other way around, is if you are trying to control other people and you're coming to some honesty about how controlling you may well be, not saying you are, just saying how interesting if you find a little bit of it in yourself. Best of luck with that one. Is that when you are trying to control people and you succeed, there is a relationship, there is a payoff going on, and that is they must want something from you in order to allow themselves to be controlled. And that isn't a relationship necessarily or a part of a relationship that's healthy for any of us, because we either lord it over people and dangle things above their head so we can control them, or they do it to us and we sit in a place of subservience because we don't want to lose the chance of getting whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be material stuff or non-material stuff. It would be both. It could be as simple as money, or a lift in the morning, or the fact that they back us up at work, or they're married to us and we want to stay married to them. Or it could be emotional. We have, in fact, there's that wonderful Ram Dass quote, isn't there? If you think you're so enlightened, go and spend a week with your parents. And no matter how lovely and wonderful and kind and supportive our parents are, we tend to have, if we were raised by them especially, we tend to have issues with our parents. And they have issues with their parents. I think it's interesting that we don't have so many issues with our grandparents because they didn't raise us. And they're that sort of generation away. And so what we can often want from our parents especially is approval and understanding or validation. And this can go on. I've seen it in people in their 60s and 70s. I've seen it in people whose parents aren't alive anymore. Having this narrative of what they want. And all this comes down to wanting to control the outside world. and so that our inside world feels better. And this leads me to another fundamental truths about human beings. And this is as fundamental as it gets, I think, is that the only thing that any human being wants, truly and honestly, when we strip it all back, the only thing any human being wants is to feel better than they do now. The only thing is to feel better than they do now. And we think there's a future moment in 5 minutes or next week or 6 weeks or 6 months or a year, you get the gist, where we will feel better than now if we only get this, the thing we feel out of control of. Whatever it is. I often find if I'm listening, say, like to an astrologer or something about the future and have you, and they're telling us what's going to happen, and I'm listening and trying to relate it to my life, what I find is I try and relate it to the bit of my life that I'm not satisfied with. And there's lots in my life that I am satisfied with, and I don't sit there going, oh, I wonder if that will get better. Oh, they obviously mean that, because it doesn't bug me. The thing that bugs me is the thing I'm not so happy with. And the thing I'm not so happy with tends to be a bit I feel out of control of. And then I look outside of myself for that to change, for people to give it to me, for me to take it from someone, for someone to give me approval or a sorry or some money or, all the things I've talked about. Let's put it all on me, and it's easier maybe to see. Is that it's in all of us. If you can see it in me, remember, it's a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. If you can see it in me or in your friends, it's in you. The things that bug us most about other people are behaviours or games we're playing ourselves. And they bug us even more when that person is playing them better than us. There's a lot of pearls of wisdom in this one today, aren't there? I feel like I should underline them or something with some kind of verbal pen, but I don't have one, and maybe someone can invent one. But at the moment, we've done, what have we done? Ram Dass quote, we've done people wanting to feel better, and we just did another one, I've forgotten what I said. But either way, lots of pearls. So my point is that we are trying to make our internal landscape more peaceful and happy. When we understand that the reason that internal landscape isn't so peaceful and happy is because we think the external landscape is withholding something from us. Whatever that is, as I said, I've listed loads: jobs, excitement, holidays, relationships, children. There's just a million lists. Think of the things you want. And we think that's been withheld from us. And we then try and control the outside world in order to get that bit that we think eventually will make us happy. And if ever you've got the thing, which we often do, that we think might make us happy, in some ways it does. There's a point at which sort of the desire releases. And that lack of desire allows us some internal peace. But what you find eventually, and quicker normally than we're all ready for, is we start to rise again in this dissatisfaction, this permanent sense of dissatisfaction. And our desire latches on to the next thing we don't have, whatever that is. And again, as I said, it's not necessarily a material thing, it's often an emotional thing. And so the point of these podcasts and where we're headed and what I hope is going to come from them is we all start more and more in our everyday lives to put that gap that I talk about, the gap between what's going on in our minds and the stories we tell ourselves, the fantasy we live in, and the fact that the outside world is withholding things from us so that we are dissatisfied and unhappy. And when we have that gap, do you remember about being the observer of all these feelings, being the observer of your mind, and taking a deep breath and being peaceful and watching that? You get to see it for what it is: a desire, a discomfort, a lack, an unhappiness, a dissatisfaction, a pain, wanting to control. And you get a chance to make another choice. None of this stuff goes overnight. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying that life is easier when you start to do it. Is that you get to make another choice. when you're aware of something, when you acknowledge something, when you see your own controlling, you get to make another choice about it. If you put a space between it being all consuming and who you think you are, literally who you think you are. Remember, our thoughts are mad. They really are mad. Who you think you are, it puts a space there, and you can take a deep breath and make another decision. This is just discomfort, and I want to control this person so I don't feel this discomfort. Or I want something from this person so I don't feel this discomfort. Or I want something from life so I don't feel this discomfort. And feel the discomfort. That's the magic of feelings. They don't kill you. We die. The things we do to avoid feelings kill us all the time. But nobody ever died of a feeling. And it's well worth remembering that when we're feeling that discomfort. Allow yourself to feel it. And notice how it makes you want to behave. And just give another behaviour a shot. Even if it's just not doing anything. But give another behaviour a shot. And see how that changes the inside of you. And as I bang on about this all the time, once the inside of you starts changing, the outside of you starts changing. And that is the control we have. You know, we started this podcast with you're way more in control of things than you realise. But you aren't in control of the stuff outside of you. You're in control of the stuff inside of you. You know, the only thing you have 100% control of is your attitude. So we just change it. You know, the lower part of us doesn't want that. We want it to be everyone else's fault. But, you know, if that worked, I would have figured that out a long time ago and be living this wonderful life. And actually, the harder, rubbisher lessons, I'm trying so hard not to swear here. The kids have given me a swear jar, and I really, really don't want to fill it up. But all the rubbishy bits of life, we want it to change outside of us. And all I've learned is that I have to find what it has for me inside of me. And so let's do that this week. Let's practice just remembering to put that space between what we're thinking, what we think we want, what we want from other people, taking a breath, and maybe giving another behaviour a shot, even if it's just not thinking about that person or that thing, and see what the week brings you. It's been lovely to chat, as always. Happy Tuesday, and hopefully no glitches next week, and I'll be back Monday morning. It's been lovely, and thank you for listening. See you next week.